Now, one of the more interesting story decisions made by the writers of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series was to not only include Leia in it, but to create basically this deep friendship between her and Obi-Wan. A friendship that doesn't seem to align with what we see in A New Hope, when Leia sends this rather formal message to him that heavily implies the two have never met each other before. And yeah, I've heard all the excuses for the message or the way she worded it, and that it was something along the lines of she was worried the Empire might intercept it and that would incriminate herself and Obi-Wan or something, that it would let them know the two knew each other. Even though the series shows that the Empire already knows that they know each other. I mean, Obi-Wan, literally rescues Leia from a secret Imperial base at one point, smuggles her out right under his trench coat essentially. Not to mention, here she is in A New Hope, sending him a message asking him to get the plans to the Death Star to her father on Alderaan so that the rebels can find a way to blow the thing up. Which already means if this message is discovered by the Empire, it's not going to matter how she worded it. It all but confirms she and her father are traitors to the Empire, that they're working for the rebellion, and them knowing Kenobi is just icing on the cake at that point. They're already going to be, at best, imprisoned for the rest of their lives, and at worst, executed. I've also heard people point out how excited Leia gets when she hears Luke say that he's here with Ben Kenobi and he's here to rescue her.
I'm here to rescue you. I've got your R2 unit. I'm here with Ben Kenobi.
Ben Kenobi? Where is he?
Come on.
Even though after that she doesn't inquire about Obi-Wan even once or suggest that they, try to save him too. Try to save her friend who saved her life in the past and more than once. Nor is there even a single sign of mourning his death later on when they're in the Falcon and Luke is all torn up about it. It's almost as if that initial excited reaction by Leia was simply excitement over learning her message had reached someone named Kenobi, and that she was smart enough to put two and two together that Ben Kenobi and Obi-Wan Kenobi were either the same person or related. Hell, her father may have even told her that he goes by the name Ben these days. And look, if they really wanted to use Leia to get Obi-Wan off of Tatooine for a little while in the series, which I've said before is probably the best way or excuse to use, they would have been better off having the two either somehow not meet or for it to be a very, very brief encounter where she never even truly learns his name or anything about him before he's then off to do something else that he gets caught up in. And at first, that seemed to be what they were going for. It seemed like Leia wasn't going to learn or figure out much about him at all, but in the end they just couldn't help themselves, or they thought it was a better story, and they made the two best friends. Friends that apparently send very formal messages to each other when asking for help, which I don't know about you is what I do when I'm asking my friends for help. I address them as, "Good day, sir. I'm hoping that perhaps you can help me or assist me this evening." But anyway, it turns out the original plan for the series may have made even less sense than what we ultimately got, because we've recently learned from Ewan McGregor himself that it was going to be a story about me and Luke. It was always going to be that. And that was one of the genius moments where everyone went, wait a minute, and then changed it. And I'm assuming he means and believes that the genius moment was to just swap Luke for Leia because I guess the character's never done anything cool and or important in Star Wars before and she needed a moment to shine as a 9-year-old. And make no mistake here, I'm not critiquing the young actress. I know some didn't like her performance or thought she looked too young, and if that's the case, that's fine. But I thought her performance was pretty good, a highlight even. And for what it's worth, I thought young Leia was written pretty well. I think that's what she'd more or less be like at that age. That said, a genius move wasn't replacing Luke for Leia. It would have been coming up with something original without really using either one of them, or with minimal use of Luke, or yet a minimal use of Leia to get Kenobi off planet. Not that I think he needed to be taken off planet for the series to be successful, but I do get them wanting to make it more exciting for the casual fans or the general audience. Not to mention, after the book of Boba Fett, I don't think anyone wanted another series just on Tatooine. Either way, what would have been genius, again, was something original that didn't rely on any other legacy characters, save perhaps using Vader. And using Leia or Luke extensively comes off feeling like picking low-hanging fruit, going for the easiest, most attention-grabbing story that you can use to lure in an audience, not like something that makes any sense in story when you really step back and examine it. Because even though, yeah, I think it's pretty clear from A New Hope that Luke not only knows who Ben Kenobi is, but has met him and interacted with him before to some extent, I also think it's clear that they've never been on anything resembling any sort of adventure together, especially one where Obi-Wan presumably saves his life or something along those lines. I also think had they done that, had they had some sort of adventure where Luke and Obi-Wan are off doing who knows what together or being saved or whatever it might be, it would have come off as rather odd if Kenobi never mentioned knowing Luke's father during this little adventure. I mean, in theory, wouldn't Luke be kind of angry in A New Hope when Obi-Wan starts telling him that he knew his father, but didn't mention that years ago in this little adventure? And sure, you can use the excuse that Uncle Owen wouldn't allow it, that he didn't want Obi-Wan training or telling Luke all these things, and that's what stopped Obi-Wan from saying anything at that point. But that still wouldn't stop Luke from being frustrated or flat out angry to learn that this had all been kept from him, that Obi-Wan didn't tell him the truth in their time together. I also think that if Obi-Wan again saves Luke, which presumably would happen in the series, that Luke wouldn't have just sat there and said nothing when Owen said of Kenobi, that wizard is just a crazy old man. I think Luke may have come back with something like, "You mean that crazy old man who saved my life that one time when I was a kid?" And as is with the Kenobi series we got, I'm not sure Owen would say that of Kenobi after saving Luke from Reva. Though yes, you could also argue that Owen is just saying what he has to because he wants Luke to steer clear of all of that Jedi stuff, and will say whatever he needs to. But really, I feel the problem is that those writing these stories don't realize or don't really care about these things. They don't really care about all the little details and it all making perfect sense or aligning with what's already in place. They just tell the stories they want to tell the way they want to tell them, and after the fact, Lucasfilm and Disney, they wonder why fans get so frustrated with what they put out. And it almost makes me wish, not that this would ever happen, but that they'd hire some fans to read over their scripts and point out things that don't make a whole lot of sense or that are going to cause issues, that would cause headaches for all parties involved, for Lucasfilm from having to listen to angry fans because you made something that got fans angry. And yeah, I know that's what I think the Lucasfilm Story Group is already supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be keeping things straight and making sure stories line up with what has come before or what will come after, since most things these days are just prequels. But they either suck at their job or they don't have any real power to make changes or to influence the stories that are written. They can only suggest changes and then just get ignored or whatever. And no, this isn't me applying for the job I'm trying to invent. I'm just saying someone should be reading these scripts, some sort of fan with a deep knowledge, so that we can avoid these potential landmines that will set off the fan base.
I don't know. Someone.
You?
Of course not me.
But someone.
Someone wise.
And honestly, it kind of blows my mind that they don't do this, that they don't try to avoid these problems before they happen. Or maybe they just don't really care that much. Maybe the reason why they'd never even consider hiring fans, not that you'd even have to technically hire them and pay them. Most would do it for free, I'd wager. But the reason why they don't do something like that is because they don't actually care. They'd find it too difficult to adhere to the canon and what the fans are suggesting they should do. Not that they should be writing the stories, but again, they can read through and point out problem areas. I'm sure if some fans had read The Last Jedi, things would be different right now in the Star Wars fandom. Problem is, it's just, again, much easier to pick the low-hanging fruit and to use Luke and Leia and think you're being a genius by doing it than it is to do something more complicated, something that would require actually a well-written story and for people to get vested in new characters. But then again, we've seen what Disney and Lucasfilm has done with new characters, and it's very much been hit and miss. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think. Do you think Leia made sense in the Kenobi series, or did it not make sense? And would Luke have made more sense, or even less? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.